Look how the stars turn on. Look how the stars turn on. When I hold you close. When I hold you close. When I hold you close. The stars turn on.
Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 26 of the Press Box in association with the unit. So we'd hoped to be reflecting on the St. Patrick's Athletic match this week, but on Friday evening, just 46 hours before it was due to take place, the FAI called the game off, much to Dundalk's frustration. Jon Daly branded the decision farcical, while question marks were also raised around sporting integrity and rules being followed in a hard-hitting statement from the club. On this week's show, we're going to debate that decision and also look ahead to this Friday's visit of Shelbourne to Oriel Park. We'll also remember the late, great Jim McLaughlin, who sadly passed away since our last episode. But first, I know over the last week, I don't even know what's going on anymore since we've done the last pod, but the decision... It was funny. I know we were talking about it before, and I suppose to quickly give my 2 pence on it. I think for the greater good of the game in Ireland and to hopefully get a team to progress, I think it was clearly the right decision to do it. But I just think the FAI made an absolute hames of it, calling it off 46 hours with Jon Daly preparing a team with guys maybe able to take time off with the cost of the club, as you said, with programs and different things like that we would have had to do. So I'm kind of torn. So I think they just made the balls on the actual decision-making process. If they had said ultimately at the start, whether it was the week before or something, that won't be on. We all get whether it's right or wrong or Dundalk or annoyed, fair enough. But I think it was the right decision, but I think they made a hames of it. But then in Dundalk's point of view, there's also a part of me that's thinking, Jesus, we could do with 3 points. Maybe Stephen Kenny would have had to put out the under-18s or something. And that's actually 3 points if we beat them, of course. So it was definitely a funny one, kind of that statement and stuff from the club, and everything showed how angered and disappointed that the club and Dundalk FC as a whole, including fans, were. But I think we can all accept that it probably was the right decision, but as usual, the FAI probably made a hames of how they went about things.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Look, it was wrong on the number of levels. It's right for Pats, and by the way, I've no qualms about. I actually watched the first leg last week, and give a really good account of themselves. I wish them well in Turkey for what it's worth. But from a Dundalk perspective, when you're told, first and foremost, we knew Pats were in this round from the previous Thursday night. Had to wait until the Monday for official confirmation that the game had been pushed to the Sunday. So what changed within 4 days?
The lads got obviously a good result.
Yeah, but that shouldn't matter. This unique opportunity that they're talking about was there before this. I mean, you can't just, decide, oh, well, they've had a good result, we'll give them a chance. I know it's a different level, but it's the same thing, really. If Man United are in the semi-finals of the Europa League and they're 1-0 up from the first leg, do you call off a league fixture to give them a better chance of making the final because it's good for English football? It's a joke. And I think had the decision been made initially when Pats went through against Saba, there wouldn't be as much issue about it. But to let it go literally 46 hours in advance of the game, because there's a number of knock-on effects here. You're organising stewarding, you're organising volunteers, you've printed a programme. I do believe they'll put out that programme again, but it's a bit out of date now. You've given players a schedule. I was up in Oriel on Monday speaking to Jon Daly about it, and obviously he's not too happy. But one of the knock-on consequences of this is because obviously since our last show, there was a round of FAI Cup fixtures, and with Waterford going out to Athlone, it kind of made Dundalk's schedule a bit clear, because there was a doubt whether Dundalk's game against Waterford away on the 13th would have went ahead, because they would have potentially been in cup action. The fact they went out, it made the schedule very clear. So he says, right, lads, international break coming up, weekend off, do what you want to do, etc. And players subsequently go and book flights to go home. We obviously have a large contingent of UK-based players, in terms of family are there, and they're out of pocket now, because the game gets refixed for Thursday, September the 5th, when they're meant to be off that weekend. So it has knock-on effects. And I know people probably won't feel sorry for the players, but I mean, the reality is, if you're told in any job you have time off and you go and you make plans, you shouldn't be out of pocket. There is sporting integrity. That was something the club mentioned, and I think that has to come into it, because, I mean, if you just take, let's be honest, we're in a battle with Drogheda to avoid the drop. That doesn't mean others won't get dragged into it, but let's be honest, it's us and Drogheda. Drogheda had the benefit of playing Rovers in between the Celje matches and got a point. Probably could have got a win, truth be told, but a really good point that could be crucial in the end. And as Jon Daly pointed out when I was talking to him, just going to Tala and coming from behind, and what that does for your confidence, etc., is amazing. And that was the exact same scenario from the perspective of if Shamrock Rovers beat Celje, which they did. They turned it on in the second leg, 1-3-1. They're guaranteed group stage football. So it's not like for like. And then Dundalk, listen, again, you need a crystal ball to work these things out. Pats have a strong squad. I think every team competing in Europe has a strong squad. And it's for these moments that you cater for it. I remember, I think it was 2019, Dundalk ironically going up to Pats in Inchicore, and we basically put out a B team. John Mountney scores a winner. We won 1-0 in between European matches, and big result. But that's why you have your squad. They went to Galway the week before in a game they didn't really want. I think they made 9 changes and got a good point in a very difficult place to go. So they have the squad to cope with it. Listen, that doesn't mean we would have beaten the St. Pat's B team, for want of a better term, but you certainly have a better chance. And look, win or lose in Turkey on Wednesday, Pats ironically now played Drogheda at the weekend, and I think win or lose, are they as prepared for it as they would be? Because you're naturally coming down from something, be it a win or a deflation, and we've seen it ourselves in the past. I remember us beating Bate or on cloud 9, and you go and you lose to Galway and Bray in your next games. So I think all these things need to be taken into account. People will point out that, okay, Istanbul Başakşehir didn't have a fixture this weekend, but that is part of the Turkish arrangement. So their game, they were due to be away to Samsunspor this weekend, which has been pushed back to the 17th of September, but as has Trabzonspor and as has Galatasaray's games. And similarly, on match day 3 last year, Galatasaray, Besiktas, Fenerbahce and Başakşehir had their games pushed back to the end of September. And that's a pre-arrangement in Turkish football. It's the only game that's moved around for Europe in the entire season, and it's always match day 3, or at least has been in recent seasons. This year, Pats had their match day 24 and match day 25 fixtures brought forward to April and May respectively, and that was on nights when the rest of the league, so they didn't play, for example, on July 12th, the night we beat Drogheda 4-2, and they didn't play on July 26th when Dundalk drew 1-1 to Bows. So the European clubs, and not just Pats, have already been catered for by the FAI as part of the participation agreement. The participation agreement does state that, if there's a 72-hour rule in there, but the 72-hour rule wasn't going to be broken. There's a question of legality of this in terms of following rules, because the league director is the only one who can cancel a game. But from what the Dundalk statement said, this direction came from the CEO and the president of the FAI, who in theory have no right to interfere in the league. And I just think it sort of stinks, to be honest with you. Now, that's nothing against Pats. They're well within their rights to get it wrong. People will say that, Dundalk got favours in the past and games called off. They did, but I would also say that's because of a lot of FAI incompetence. Like I remember referencing it before, nearly every year round about the 20th of July ballpark, we were drawn away to Sligo, and every year away to Sligo was pushed down the road. And I always argued that fixture should never have been put in there because you knew Dundalk were going to be in first round action. And it should never have been, put there. It was always going to be moved. Other games do get moved around naturally enough, but like if you think like there's a precedent of this. So in 2019 when we played Slovan Bratislava, Dundalk arrived back, played on the Wednesday, arrived back in the early hours of Thursday morning, had to go to Cove in the Cup, one of the longest domestic journeys you can make, scraped a 1-0 win, and then had to go into a second leg tie with Slovan, with the game still in the middle. They'd lost the first leg 1-0, a late goal over in Bratislava, but you're still thinking, get the first goal and Tala, game on. And that was in a 6-day period and no favours done then. You go the following year, Filippo Giovagnoli put out a B team effectively against Shamrock Rovers to beat us 4-0 in Oriel Park before the Claxvik game. So, games that were moved around, teams, you have to give a certain amount of sort of compensation to teams. I appreciate that, and you want the teams to do well in Europe, but this isn't a level playing field for me, and that's my argument with it. And had they done it the previous week and said, right, the minute they beat Saba, lads, we have a chance of getting through here. Like the Dundalk wouldn't have liked it, but what they could have done was arrange their week accordingly. They could have maybe organised a friendly. They could have told players, don't book flights home on that particular weekend because we're going to be in action in a rearranged game. Players could have had this weekend. I did a piece with Andy Boyle just before the game, actually, because he's coming up on his 500 career start, and he was even talking about trying to squeeze a christening in now. That this shouldn't affect that necessarily, but like players have lives too, and they make plans, and like a lot of them are parents now, but a lot of them are also living away from home. And when you have a gap in your schedule, that's when you do this, you do that. And I think it was massively disrespectful by the FAI. And in a scenario where I think there's a big debate over the future governance of the league, where, I think Shamrock Rovers have set maybe, and possibly even since our last show, it's grown in stature as an argument. But should there be a breakaway from the FAI? I don't think this has helped matters at all, because they've shown very, very weak governance. Again, I wish Pats well. There's nothing against Pats, but that, I agree with Jon Daly, was an absolute farcical decision to do it that late in the day, having only set the fixture officially on the Monday to then call it on the Friday. It's shockingly poor, in my opinion. And listen, if Dundalk go down this season, which very good chance we do, this isn't going to be the thing that relegates us or anything, far from it. I'm not using that as an excuse, but it's certainly not going to help. It's certainly not going to help. And to go, like, it's going to be 3 weeks since they last played a competitive game at this stage of the season. It's wrong. Like, you're trying to build, there's an element of us trying to put a bit of a positive spin in it, but our last episode we spoke about, look, a good point away to Derry showed a bit of resilience. Like, we're not kidding ourselves here. It's not perfect or wasn't perfect or anything like that, but they did show a bit of fight, bit of heart. Maybe Robbie Mahan takes his chance before halftime. You're 2-0 up. You potentially win that game, and maybe it's a turning point in the way that, who would have backed, obviously pre-Friday, but who would have backed Sligo to go on a run post the break? When we had beaten them fairly easily before the break. Who would have backed, Drogheda to go on a run when we beat them 4-2 in Oriel on the 12th of July? But sometimes one good result can set that bit of momentum. Like, we're all hoping that, Jamie Gullen, for example, scores a winner and it sets them off, like buses, the goals start flowing or whatever. And maybe there's an element of delusion in that, but that's what you have to hope for. You have to believe it. You have to hope it comes and whatever. Um, how can you possibly build momentum in a scenario like this? And you bear in mind, like the Derry performance, you have people like Hayden Khan had playing his first game since 31st of May. You had people like Robbie Mahan coming back after 4 months out. You had people like maybe Dan Pike producing, I think, without question, his best display in a right back role. And you're like, if you're any of those individuals, you're just thinking, right, let's build on this, let's build on this. And unfortunately, we did go out of the cup, and that's completely Dundalk's fault. So they had a free week, but in that period, they used it wisely to play Longford in a friendly, got players minutes, likes of Dara Keane got back on the pitch, etc. So positive. They did a team bonding day out in Sky Park in Carlingford, and you're thinking, right, get into this now. And you're thinking, like, again, listen, it's like anything, like Premier League's just kicked off again, and it's never going to be easy facing a Man City or a Liverpool or whatever. But if you're any team in the Premier League, you're saying, well, I'd rather play them when they've just been in Europe the previous 48 hours or 72 hours previous. And yeah, there's no guarantee we would have won had Sunday's game gone ahead, but you'd rather face a team coming on the back of Europe than maybe fresh. And that's what we've lost out on. Whereas teams around us, Galway have played a couple of matches around teams in Europe. You could argue they haven't really taken advantage. They've drawn with Pats, they've drawn with Rovers. But Drogheda have certainly, they got a good point in Tala. And if the benefit of playing Pats now coming off the back of Turkey, regardless of how that comes out, I think, it's a come down from playing out in Istanbul, let's be honest. So I think it was a really, really poor decision. Obviously, we can't change it, and I'm not making excuses for it. But I definitely think the FAI have, shot themselves in the foot here, because for me, they've overstepped their limits of what decisions they can make.
Yeah, I think for another day, actually, I think the conversation actually of the breakaway League of Ireland / FAI is a massive argument, because actually when you talk about decisions like this, prize money, TV rights, all this, if you actually ask yourself, like, what is the benefit of the FAI being in charge of League of Ireland? Like,
and they've showed a weakness before, and this isn't a Pats argument, but if you must remember if you remember back to 2022, Pats had a good win out in Sofia and then didn't get a flight back and failed to fulfill a fixture with Shelbourne and got away with it.
Yeah.
And if you and that particular season, we were going basically head to head with Pats for third place, or certainly a place in Europe, and that could have been crucial. So there's an element of weakness in this where you just, like, you can't just not fulfill a fixture. But they obviously moaned enough for, and listen, I don't begrudge them that. They're Stephen Kenny and the people at Pats are doing what's right for their club, but it's done very few favours for Dundalk.
Yeah. Right. Well, we had one or two comments, and as always, brought to you by Malone Financial Services. So Hugh McCardle said, is it true that in February all clubs signed up to not postponing games for European competitions? Looks like it's not a level playing field from the FAI. One rule for one club and another for Dundalk. Why did Galway and Pat's game not get postponed? And then Andrew Lynch said, are Dundalk still in the market for any players?
Yeah, well, on Hugh's topic there, I suppose we've probably just covered that, but he is right about the participation agreement. And again, this is why in recent years, so you go back to even last year, Pats in Europe again, and ironically Jon Daly was the manager, but the same two sets of fixtures, match day 24, match day 25, were moved to accommodate them playing uninterrupted between their games with Dundalk. Now, they lost those games out of Europe or whatever, but they actually went, now they did play Longford in the Cup away in between, but they actually went from July the 7th to August the 4th without a fixture. So the teams are accommodated here, and they actually get accommodated with two fixtures being moved. People will point out that, Bishak Shear aren't playing this week. but that is a Turkish league agreement similar to what we have, and it's the only round of games affected, and it benefits all Turkish clubs in Europe. So it's a similar sort of arrangement, but this has stepped in again and given another benefit that, listen, as I said, the argument for me, I know he referenced Galway and Pats there. What was the difference between Rovers coming back from the Celje game and playing Drogheda in between on the Sunday, and then having Celje in Tala in the next round with a chance to qualify for the group stages? I don't see the difference, and that was allowed to proceed. So, when Dundalk raised things like sporting integrity, and I believe, I haven't spoken to him about it or haven't been in contact with him at all, but I believe Brian Ains gets over this week, and like, I'm sure it'll be a topic he raises when he's here, because I again, I reiterate, Dundalk aren't in where they are because of this, but it doesn't help. And look, again, I think everyone was bitterly disappointed that the game was called off on Friday, and then Drogheda go out and win 7-0 against Sligo Rovers to leave you bottom. So it was just it was a bad night. In relation to Andrew's question on is still in the market for players, I believe like most clubs, there's still been players bandied about. Obviously, the English leagues have kicked off. The transfer deadline is this weekend, I think. I presume it's the 31st of August. I'm not entirely sure, but it is this week. And you'd never say never, but I don't think so. I think at this stage it's going to be very hard to get up to speed. By the time anyone who would come in, you'd imagine you've already played Shelbourne, you're down to 8 matches. It's going to be very hard to get, unless, listen, if someone really, really good became available, you'd probably take a chance on it, but I don't think they're actively looking, although, like any agents, are still getting in contact.
Right, well, before discussing the visit of Damien Duff's Shelbourne to Oriel Park this Friday, let's hear from our sponsors, The Unit.
Today's episode is powered by The Unit, experts in building innovative products for the betting, iGaming, and sports industries. They're the brains behind building innovative products tailored for those who love the game as much as we do. From software that powers up the betting world to platforms that enhance how we engage with our favourite sports, The Unit is leading the charge. The Unit, a winning team that reminds me of the Kenny era Dundalk in their consistency and results. Proud sponsors of the Press Box podcast. Learn more at theunit.dev.
Right, so Shels this Friday, and kind of as I start every one of these conversations, is about, can we start to get a run together? And I suppose the only thing with Shels is, and again, I watch a lot of LOI TV and different clubs. Like, I know they are kind of joint top, but like they're officially not top of the league anymore. Like, their form would say that they're not a team that's unbeatable, that we can't get minimum a point from if we kind of are set up well. But to counteract that, yeah, there is an opportunity. Yes, maybe we will get something. But ultimately, again, as I keep saying now, we need to start getting wins. And I think that's probably to secure 9th, if we're being honest with ourselves. But I think it's time that actually we start getting wins. And I understand the league leaders or joint league leaders, like Shelbourne, have been top of the league for 22 to 28 weeks. They're not a bad side, to be fair. They probably lost 2 of their best players, which is unlucky for them. They've replaced very well, if we're being honest. So, like, even O'Brien coming in, former Ireland international, scored on his debut. That's something that we're kind of just not getting. To be fair, I think we're probably a bit even wary now. You said Drogheda are playing Pats, and with all that messing that went on, again, maybe Pats have a weak inside. You don't know. And Drogheda, the thing is, we need to start getting points, because yes, Drogheda are getting points, but ultimately, like, if we go down, it's on us. So at some stage, things need to happen. And as you said, we played friendlies, we had extra training time. So I think now, if I was talking to if I'm Brian Ainscough and you're talking to Jon Daly and the team, it's showtime. Now we're into the last run of games, and this is it. It's win or bust now. So I think there's always an opportunity to get something out of Shelbourne, but I definitely would like to see us push on and actually start progressing and get a win and take it from there.
Yeah, like at some point, and maybe it'll never come, but you have to hope that one big result can sort of change your fortune. And like the fact that you've back-to-back home matches, obviously that Pats game that we reference has been rearranged for the following Thursday, the 5th. So you've 2 games in Oriel where you're quite strong. I think, look, the second game kind of looks after itself in the perspective of, like, I think Dundalk could be fired up for that Pats game now. Jon Daly against his old club probably knows him a little better than anyone else. There could be European hangovers, you wouldn't know. But like the evidence is there that, like, I referenced Sligo earlier. You know, anyone who was at the game in Oriel before the break, albeit we only beat them 1-0, they looked like a side who, you know, I know you predicted them for the drop at the start of the season, but they looked like that side that night. They come back after the break to beat Rovers, to beat Derry, and they go on this run of 5 wins in 6. And the one defeat in that was ironically against St. Pat's, where the most blatant robbery of refereeing I think I've ever seen and there's some things for it, but like that, momentum is fickle too. They go into a game against UCD that they probably expected to win in the cup. They lose 2-0 and they follow it up by, I didn't see the game against Drogheda on Friday, but 7-0 is, I mean, were they there at all sort of thing. Likewise, when we beat Drogheda 4-2 on the 12th of July in Oriel, you're thinking these are a beaten side. They were awful that night. But they learned lessons from it. They made a few changes. They went with the 2 up top, which is working for them. And they changed the likes of their goalkeeper. They go out and they beat us in the cup the next week and they haven't looked back since. And it just, momentum's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Like, even, look, were they expected to beat Wilton? Absolutely. But the benefit of, going out and trashing someone by 9 goals and then following it up with 7 goals against Sligo, like, they're flying high right now. So if we're going to ever produce something to get us up and running, it needs to be in, the likes of, let's go out and beat the league favourites. Because I think, even though you're right that they did lose top spot for the first time since March at the weekend, albeit on goal difference, but there's still, I think, with the game in hand, there's still probably most people's tips for the league. And I think it was Dodge did a table the other day about how no one is really in form at the moment, and you could throw Shelbourne bang in that. They've their last 4, they've drawn 3 and lost 1. That's not league winning form by any stretch of the imagination. Even Derry, who went top, like, how many times have we saw Derry slip up and maybe not take advantage or not get over the line, and it was a bizarre own goal, for want of a better term, down in Waterford that gets them there. And maybe that's the point where Derry, you'd want a crystal ball again, but maybe that's just what you need to, right, we're top now, lads, let's hold on to it, let's kick on.
I don't actually if you've seen Ben Doherty's tweet about that. So he put up, he was like, "This is the best header of my life." Like, he screen grabbed the thing, but it was like him knocking it back over. But
all joking aside, you're taking it, like, if that's the goal that puts you top, that gets you. Because I think, again, Dodge's tweet, 1 win and 4 or something, and that's obviously the 1 win. It's the scrappiest, dirtiest win you'll imagine. But I mean, if it's the one that kicks you into gear, because I look at that Derry team on paper and say they have everything to go and win the league. And unlike Shelbourne, they've league winners in their team. Like, I think there was 6 ex-Dundalk players the last game we played starting that night. That's not including Patrick McElhenney. Mark Connolly probably doesn't have league winning experience, but he has won stuff in Scotland. So, like, they have everything on paper to go and do it, but they've just flattered to deceive every time I've seen them. But that could be the moment, and the Dundalk just are praying for that moment, and maybe we're getting Shelbourne at a good time. As I say, their form was stuttered, even the required penalties, albeit, look, Gaul was not an easy team to play against, but the required penalties to get through in the cup. So their last win outside of that shootout win was actually at the end of June against Galway, you know, so they're not in good form in many respects. They've hit a bit of a bump in the road. In between, they've lost the likes of Gavin Malloy. They've lost the likes of Will Jarvis, who was probably most people's tip for, or certainly top 3 for Player of the Year. And that's a blow. I know they've recruited well. Remains to be seen. It's too early to judge the likes of Aidan O'Brien. On paper, an excellent signing, but paper doesn't, produce things. So, look, there's an opportunity to maybe get at them. There's generally very little in the games. I think, 6 of the last 11 league matches between the sides have been draws. They haven't won in Oriel since September 2012. I know they've had our number recently in Talca, but even at that, it's been by minor margins. So, look, it's not an easy game. They're still rightfully probably the league favourites and one of the up and coming teams, but at some point you need to respond, and it's a perfect opportunity, I think, because Jon Daly still, and maybe look, some fans will say he's delusional or whatever, but he still thinks we can rein in Bows and maybe even Pats, and look, with Drogheda, Bows and Pats not playing until Sunday, if you go and beat Shels, for example, and ifs, buts, and maybes, but if you go and beat Shels, not alone are you off the bottom, you're within 2 points of Bows. So, like, they still have a rocky run of form. They still have to come to Oriel. So, as much as I get there's a load of doom and gloom, and I'm not trying to avoid that, but you have to try and think the team anyway, the squad has to stay positive. They have to believe and they have to hope what's coming. We just probably need a bit of a break at some point. Maybe we need Louis Jones carrying ultimately the ball over us.
It's showtime. They just got to do it now, and that's what I'm saying. Like, we can't talk next week now. When we're playing Pats, right? Well, this is the one. Like, at some stage, as you said, by then I think it's 8 games left, and then it's 7, and then the other lads are getting far away, and hand on heart, ultimately, I think we'll finish 9th. I don't think Drogheda will actually keep whatever's going, but I do think we'll probably come 9th, if we're being honest. But I'd still like to see.
It's always dangerous when you make predictions. Always dangerous.
Yeah, but if I say 9th, maybe we'll come 8th. I don't know. But I think the next few games just can show us. Like, I think we can make predictions and go through stats and stuff as much as we want, but ultimately it's just the 11 lads on the pitch that are going to make a difference, and we either start winning games or we're going down, and that is why Jon Daly and the players are paid money to sort this out, and ultimately on Friday that's what we're going to see, whether we're in or out, lads.
We need to find the shooting boots, like it was pointed out to me, like Drogheda scored 7 against Sligo on Friday. We've only scored 8 at home all season. Like, it's, we haven't a bad record there, but if you think back to the run, was it 8 matches we went without conceding at home? Far too many draws in that. You're even thinking if you nick 1 or 2 here, like, I mean, you're
1 or 2 then we're probably well out.
Yeah. Like, it's not like Bows are a million miles away from us. The problem is we haven't looked like putting a run of, if you could do what Sligo did,
2
win
wins
5
together.
Yeah, but like 5 year next 6, if you won, like, you'd be probably pushing for Europe in a weird way. But but it's, look, it's like, we're into the final 9 now. It's a full series of matches. The first 2 of them are at home. The one thing that would sort of concern you, and look, maybe the economist hat on you or whatever, like, just with those changes, you're down to I think there's only 3 more Friday nights in Oriel, because obviously the Pats game got moved to a Thursday, which not ideal, just with schools being back and work nights and stuff like that. And then that Rovers fixture in October is likely to be moved as well. Just, I think it clashes with the group stages, which obviously they're guaranteed, I think, to draw for that's Friday. So, you'd ideally want your Friday nights and a bit of hostility, make it not a nice place to come, which it hasn't been for teams. So look, the supporters have a big role to play. I thought the atmosphere last time we were in Oriel was very, very flat. We never really got up for it, and it was at the Galway game. Um, and I think we need to get behind the side, like if we are going down, at least go down fighting, don't just roll over for teams.
Well, to
And
be
that goes
fair, I'll
for,
stick up for supporters here. When you watch Tripe and lads maybe not playing well, or energy, no effort, which a lot has been. So if you're saying fans are, you
yeah,
don't put
no,
up for
no,
that.
and I
So,
will, like, I was the first to criticize. Look, the goal performance was flat, by the team. Was I can't defend it. But I thought at least, and again, could get into quality debates and all that, but I thought there was at least effort there in Derry last time out. So look, same again, and don't make it easy for anyone, because I get, like, look, someone's going to win this bloody league, someone's going to get into Europe, etc. But there's no one I've seen this season and it's like they're an excellent side or anything. It's not
yeah.
like, again, to use the Premier League reference, you look at different teams in England, and on their day, Man City can, I actually saw a bit of their game against Ipswich the other day, and they went 1-0 down early on, but I think within 5 minutes they were 3-1 up. They just turned it on. Now, keeper had a mare, etc. as well, but like they just have that quality to rip you open at any moment. I don't think there's anyone really like that in our league that has that. And Shels, for all the plaudits they've got this season, and yes, they're brilliant defensively and they're very, very hard to beat. They're not a team that's going to go out, and I hope this doesn't come back to bite me in the ass, but they're not a team to go out and beat you rotten or anything. Like, they give you chances in games. And yeah, look, we at some point, maybe you have to take each game as merit. Maybe a point is good against a team going for a league, but at some point you need to turn the screw and get the three. So we'll see. We'll assess it next week, I suppose.
So there's a few points here. We have just kind of different information points about kind of recently what happened, whether it's partnerships and sponsorship opportunities. So I'm going to just read a few of these, and then yourself, I know obviously former manager Jim McLaughlin passed, and I know you've probably a few nice things to say, so I'll leave you to that at the end. So I'll just rattle through this. But also, if any genuine listener is interested in giving up or sacrificing 2 Coldplay tickets for me this weekend, it would be much appreciated. So definitely get in touch. This is literally bottom of the barrel stuff for me, but however, here we go. But back to
and Oasis, I presume, while you're at it.
Well, I still have a potential opportunity of getting an Oasis ticket, but anyway, the club actually do have some player sponsorship opportunities still available. So to get one of the player shirts, and it's actually been reduced to 200 quid, and that's between now and the end of the season. So you get kind of name of the program, and you get the jersey and a picture with the player at the end of the season as well. 3 of our boys' academy players attended the Republic of Ireland Underage Assessment Day at the FAI HQ in Abbottstown recently. Jamie Grace took part in the 15 section, while TJ Malloy and Sean Spate attended the 16s. Our sponsors, the unit, they've combined with the club again to release their new Well Air partnership. So God knows what Paddy and the boys have got for that, but just keep your eye on that as well. We also had the One-Armed Wonder. So the extraordinary story of Jimmy Hasty is going to be screened at this year's Louth International Film Festival in the Tawn Arts Theatre on Saturday, September 28th. It'll be followed by a Q&A with director Rich Milway and from Noah Media. The club, in conjunction with with Dundalk Credit Union, last week launched the new Lily the Bin initiative. So 3 new easily identifiable blue bins are going to be situated in various parts of Oriel Park on match days, and the club are simply asking all the supporters to feed Lily the Bin with your empty return bottles and cans. So Lily the Bin is going to be situated in 3 locations: beside the shop, at the side of the main stand, beside the town end goal, and beside food outlets in the town end or side corner. And all the proceeds from the donations are going to go towards Dundalk FC into community programs. Our former captain and manager, Dermot Keely, is also launching a new book. So it's an autobiography called Better Without the Ball. And there's going to be a Q&A session in the Enda McGill suite in Oriel Park on Thursday, September 19th at 7:30. And I suppose finally, Daryl Horgan was named our player of the month for July. It's probably the longest reading I've done in a while. So I will let you talk about Jim McLaughlin now. It was a very sad kind of last week or two anyway, revolving the club and the league. I suppose he had a huge reputation among the league, but I'll let you fire on with that, buddy.
Yeah, like unfortunately with Jim, and most of his, I suppose, real life in football was sort of before my time, and that, you know, I wasn't around in the famous, say, Celtic games and all that, you know, but did get to know him a little bit in his later years. You know, we used to go to like the soccer writers banquets and stuff together, the Dundalk Mafia as we were known, and, you know, just as, you know, such a gentleman first and foremost, away from his thing. I think I didn't want his passing, you know, to go sort of maybe unmentioned. I was away when it happened myself, or certainly I was away for his funeral, and I was in the UK for a few days, so I didn't get along to the funeral. But you know, what a legend. I mean, you sometimes forget when someone does so much in management that, like, he actually had a brilliant playing career himself. Like, he played over 700 matches, 115 of them for Dundalk. You know, scored over 200 goals, including, I think, was it a FA Cup quarter-final winner at the Cop End for Swansea. Probably best known in England for his time with Shrewsbury and Swansea. You know, 12 caps for Northern Ireland, 6 goals, 2 against England. You know, sort of really, really good playing career. Obviously came back to Ireland in 74, November 74, and took up the reins at Oriel Park. And, you know, the club was at a sort of weak sort of ebb at that point. But I mean, over the next sort of quarter of a century, he rewrote all the history books in the league. You know, 8 league titles, 6 FAI Cups, 4 leagues, 4 league cups. You know, 8 of those major honours came at Oriel Park. And you talk about, you know, we rightfully praised likes of Rovers and Pats in recent weeks, and again wished him well. But you talk about a European record, like, I mean, I always go back to, I think he had nine European ties in his time in charge at Dundalk, and, you know, only one team, the great Liverpool side of the early 80s, with the likes of Souness and Dalglish, etc. They're the only ones to come to Oriel Park and win, you know. And you're talking, a lot of times now you have to Google who different teams are, but you're talking teams like PSV, Hajduk Split, Celtic, Porto, Tottenham Hotspur. You know, all these teams came to Oriel Park and couldn't win. You know, didn't find a way to get a winner. Obviously, there's a documentary itself in the 1979 European Cup run, with obviously the famous Linfield game, the Hibs victory, and, you know, the famous Tommy McConville sort of missed chance against Celtic, and that you know, would have set up a European Cup quarter final tie against, you know, Real Madrid. Like, he just literally did reinvent the ambitions. Like, for me, you know, when you talk about maybe the Alan Foxes before him, and obviously the likes of Turlough O'Connor and Stephen Kenny after him, I think he was the one more than anyone who put the club really on the map. And others sort of, you know, I'd say when Kenny came in, he put us maybe back on the map. But you know, just an incredible feat. He, you know, no matter where he went, you know, obviously all he won at Rovers, all he won at Derry, you know, won a league with Shelbourne, even won a first division with Drogheda. You know, just incredible stuff. And, you know, you could argue in maybe some of his roles he had great resources, etc. But again, I think he earned them as well in the manner of, you know, what he achieved at the likes of Dundalk, taking people who maybe weren't fancied at the time and making them into great players. He built up his reputation from almost scratch, and incredible feats. And I think that the truest reflection of the man is that it's very rare that I think you come across someone who's a legend at multiple clubs. I think he absolutely loved at Rovers. Obviously, a Derry native, adored at the Brandywell. I don't think I need to say how he was thought of by the Dundalk folk, but there's people like, and just for example, because if you look at him as his playing record, like Sean Gannon coming back to Oriel Park this week, he's achieved incredible things, Sean. But will he be remembered as a legend at Pats? Will he even be remembered as a legend at Rovers? I still think when he hangs up his boots, his best spell was probably at Dundalk. And maybe that got soured by him leaving, but the McLaughlin, aura, for want of a better term, to be so loved at three major clubs in particular, and all he achieved, I think, incredible. And his legacy, his son Paul played with Dundalk, his grandson Ben, all still heavily involved with Sean O'Mahony's and stuff like that. So, given so much to not just the game of soccer in this town, but obviously the Gaelic football as well. So it's been an incredible legacy. Unfortunately, he wasn't as well in recent years. But I mean, just an incredible life and career, and I don't know if we'll ever see his like again.
Oh, well said. Before we go, we're going to bring you some underage roundup anyway from this week from the club in association with Jerry McNamee Consultants.
Yeah, so on Saturday, the men's under-15s maintained their excellent start to the Phase 2 tier north section of the league with a 6-0 win over Longford Town at Glenmuir. TJ Malloy led the way with a hat-trick, while Pork Maguire, Shea Savage and Josh Weldon also found the night. Unfortunately, the under-20s, who were also in action on Saturday, lost 1-0 away to Athlone Town. There was a narrow defeat for the under-14 boys against Drogheda United on Sunday as they lost out 3-2 in Glenmuir, with Josh Weldon getting both goals for the Lily Whites. On Monday, the men's under-17s had a 3-0 win over Longford Town at Oriel Park, with Aaron Donnelly scoring twice in the first half before Shea Casey ensured the win with a third in the second. This Saturday, the men's under-20s travel to face Finn Harps away at 2 p.m, while the women's under-17s are also in the northwest as they face Sligo Rovers at 1. Meanwhile, the under-15s are in Michael Hayes Cup action at 3 p.m. on the day when they take on St. Pat's in Blanchardstown. And just finally, on Sunday, the women's under-19s travel to face Galway United away at 2 p.m, while the men's under-17s are at home to Drogheda United in Oriel at 1.
I was downloading it. Brian O'Driscoll talking to Leo Cullen there. So well, that is that from us this week on the Press Box. Thanks again to our main sponsors, the unit, as well as associate sponsors, Player Fit, Jerry McNamee Consultants, and Malone Financial Services. Again, we are going to be this will be uploaded on YouTube as always, and thanks again to Jason and Mullins on the Castleton Road who support our YouTube channel. So as always, if you wanted to like and subscribe on that as well, it'd be much appreciated. So hopefully we will have a game this week, and hopefully it is a good result. So we'll talk to you then. Thanks a million.
Look how the stars turn on. Look how the stars